a road that is covered with water if you don't know what is underneath and how deep it is. Of course, it's not only the roads. The relentless rain flooded a vineyard in Sebastopol. From high above, you can see the extent of the damage there. And some people who live in this area are worried that this storm is just the beginning.
I guess the concern is really, you know, starting this early, how long this goes on. If this goes on all winter long, we could have serious problems.
Well, and the good news is that Darren Peck has been telling us that this big storm is not indicative of how the rest of the winter is going to go.
Right.
In fact, it could be quite dry, but right here, right now, this is what we're dealing with, and it's pretty intense.
Yeah, you can understand how people would make that leap and go, well, the storm's doing this, and what does this say about winter? And the truth is it doesn't really say anything for the long term. The official stance on long term is we're likely, there's not enough to go on in terms of any large climate forcings, whether it's El Nino, La Nina, any of that stuff, to put a projection on this winter. It's equal chances, could go either way.
So we're just going to deal with the here and now.
One at a time. So we've got a pretty significant one now. We're going to look at it a couple different ways in this visit. We've been looking at the rain showing up out here on the virtual map, and let's get as wide a view out here now as we can, because I want to switch to one other aspect of this story and kind of keep the vantage point out here for a moment. As we lose the rain, what we're going to actually bring on is a pretty stark view of what wind streams look like today over the bay. No doubt you see the line, right? What have we been talking about in terms of where the heaviest rain has been? It's been along that narrow region with the cold front. Well, that cold front shows up probably the best when you look at wind streams, and you really see it here. So no doubt what catches your eye first is this line kind of extending here. This is going back to 11:45 in the morning. I just wanted to bring you to this point so you can really see what this cold front looked like as it developed. You've got your strong winds out here on the leading edge. Everything is rushing out of the south. It meets the cold front, and the wind's going in a totally different direction back here. So it's coming in from the west like this. And along this line, you've got your strongest uplift to develop the heaviest rain. This is really what's responsible for that narrow ribbon, the cold front we've been watching on radar, and hopefully we'll have time, we'll do that again here in this visit. But I want you to see how the cold front has moved. So kind of keep that somewhat wider view right now with me, Matt, and go down the peninsula a little bit, because I'm going to animate this. We're going to take it from where we are now and watch that progression. And you're going to see it get to about the 12 o'clock hour. It's moving, and right about here it gets down to the city, and that's where we saw the rain pick up. And that line doesn't keep the same intensity in the wind streams, but it is still there for the rain, and it will continue to march its way in that same direction over the course of the rest of the afternoon. Come back over here, because what happened in terms of wind with this storm, we developed another very intensely strong area of low pressure. Notice how there's two of them up there? Kind of looks like a double-barreled low. It's like two eyes and maybe a crooked smiley face down here if you wanted to Rorschach test this. But what you want to see is the intensity of those two counterclockwise circulating areas of low pressure, and then come back up to the wide view again and take a look at California, because there's our cold front. You can see it, higher winds and brighter colors in the stream, and that's coming right through the bay at 2 o'clock. That's another way of seeing how we're kind of right at one of the more intense regions of this storm. So if the cold front's here, we know it's making it windy, we know it's giving us rain. There is a wind advisory. Let's not leave that out. We've had gusts to 40 or 50 miles an hour through some of the higher elevations of San Mateo County, just within the last hour as the system has come through. And of course, the takeaway image is that one. The amount of rainfall that's been coming down with that line has brought on a flood warning for the city and now for this region of San Mateo County, kind of that western two-thirds of that northwest corner of San Mateo County anyway, to include Pacifica, where rainfall rates in Pacifica are just about an inch in the last hour. Did I get that right, Billy? Is that within an hour? So an inch an hour, and is significant.
Yeah.
That is the kind of rain where and that's why Pacifica was included in that flood warning. It was that red band going right down the coast, and it's certainly from San Francisco southward. That is the kind of rain that can run off in an urban setting real fast. So stay off the roads. Anybody who is in that red polygon there through San Mateo County and anywhere where you've got an inch of rain in an hour, you've got some issues on the road.
Yeah, I've got several friends in Pacifica. We'll be checking in on you guys. And of
Yeah.
course, whenever we're talking about rain around here, it turns into snow in the Sierra, and the Sierra Avalanche Center right now issuing a backcountry avalanche watch for the greater Lake Tahoe area. That is expected to last through early tomorrow morning at least. And our reporter Sakura Gray is up in the mountains today. She's having some fun though with the very latest there.
Well, it's been a busy week for ski resorts all around Lake Tahoe area. This morning, we're celebrating the opening day here at Boreal Mountain Resort in Soda Springs. Now, again, it's been a busy week. We had Heavenly opening on Wednesday, North Star yesterday, and today 3 more ski resorts are following suit, including Boreal, Palisades Tahoe, and Sugar Bowl. Now, today here at Boreal Mountain, lift tickets are $25, with 5 of those dollars going to local charities. As far as parking goes, parking is free and you don't even have to reserve a spot today. So in terms of how late you can get out here, lifts have been going since 9 a.m. and the last one's taken off at 8 p.m. So if you have no plans after work, you can get on out here, and they'll be open through the weekend as well. So happy opening day, everybody. All right, looks like I'm gonna grab my board and head on out there myself.
All right, Sakura's having a good time, but as we've been saying, not a good time to plan a trip up to the mountains, at least not within the next 24 hours. Still ahead. Up next, we're going to go up north to Mendocino County. That is where people are keeping a close eye on the rising waters for obvious reasons. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to our live coverage here on CBS News Bay Area. We are continuing to track that atmospheric river hitting all around the Bay Area. The rain is starting to flood some freeways. Here's a look right now at a northbound 280. This is in Daly City. A lot of water there. Dangerous driving conditions. This is just north of Washington Street. And the CHP at last word had several lanes blocked off there because of at least a foot of standing water in some spots. Yeah, and that is a scene we are seeing repeating in several spots throughout the Bay Area near the coast. This is new video in from Pacifica. Despite the storms, we saw a couple of surfers out there hitting the water, trying to take advantage of those waves. Meteorologist Darren Peck joining us again as you continue to track the storm. And really the highlight today has been that flash flood warning in San Francisco. If you're in the area, you got the big, siren on your phone.
Yeah, yep. I got it on my phone.
A couple hours ago.
You got it on yours, right?
Two phones going off at the same time.
Success to the National Weather Service for that, for making sure that the messaging got out. Everybody kind of like noticed it at the same time.
Yeah.
Then people in San Mateo County had that same experience just about 25 minutes ago or so when they got included in the flood warning. So the question is, how many more of those happen going down the peninsula over the next couple of hours? Because it's possible that they're going to, like dominoes, right? They'll keep going.
And we're going to be here to follow it for you.
We will follow it for you. Let me show you how that's likely to play out. If you take a look on the big picture, get a nice high wide view of this. This is the last 3 hours of radar on the virtual set. So it can look kind of messy because this is now coming in right over the heart of the bay. And if you haven't gotten used to looking at this depiction with us yet, I'm standing right on San Francisco. And as we play, we'll bring back the last 3 hours. You notice where there's a little bit more of a bright band showing up down here down the peninsula. And that is the pattern with which this rain is going to move. We're going to dig into the details in 1 second on high resolution in the monitor, and I'm going to pick out details of time and location for where the heaviest rain is. But first, we need this kind of general overview for how the rain is moving in across most of the bay and working its way down the peninsula now. So if we're talking about the flood warning having gotten to San Mateo County, going south from here, we're likely going to see more issuances from the National Weather Service. It doesn't mean they're all going to be flood warnings. They may start talking about things like flood advisories, urban and small stream flood advisories, as you work farther down this way, the peninsula, East Bay shore. And then eventually this will get down into the Santa Clara Valley tonight, but it won't have this intensity when it gets there. You're going to get rain in San Jose tonight through the evening commute. It's going to slow the drive down, but it's likely not going to be the kind of situation in the Santa Clara Valley that it was for San Francisco, and still is. So that flood warning there for the city will take us until we get into the 4 o'clock hour. The extension of it goes till 5, and that's what goes down along San Mateo County. And just for a closer look at that, we can pick out what some of the boundaries on that are. But remember, we know that there's likely going to continue to be that southeastward progression for different communities who are then going to, maybe you'll get a buzz on your phone, maybe you won't need one because it won't be as severe as a flood warning. And particularly we'll see these lighten in intensity as this line moves to the southeast. But to some degree, you're going to have impacts in terms of roadways and slowing down the drive. And maybe even some wind impacts from this, but that's likely for the higher elevations, the hills of San Mateo County, coast side, San Mateo County, and along the East Bay. Once you start to get into the East Bay hills, that's where we would experience some of the stronger winds from this in terms of gusts of 40 miles an hour through the remainder of this afternoon and evening. So if we go back to the radar and watch how this is playing out, it appears stationary if you just look at the last 3 hours. But we know this has forward progress on it because we've watched it here together over the course of the last hour and a half at this point. And you kind of see that last frame there where you get the brightest little connection of orange, which is now coming in kind of like right there. I know it's subtle. Maybe even if we come in for a closer look, we can kind of watch that line. I know it's kind of difficult to pick out a pattern there. Maybe see another dot that's just shown up in there. But we know from watching this where that cold front is, because we had a clear beat on it on radar when we went on at about 1 o'clock. And then we did watch it progress, and that's pretty much where it is. That line is going to continue to move down this way, which is why we were using the virtual map that way to point out the communities between now and about 5 or 6 o'clock, where you're going to see the rain kind of head down your way and weaken a little bit as the mountains absorb a greater amount of it. There you go. Now you can see why I would point to that region. Here's the last 3 hours. So, and over the last 3 hours, nope, take that back, this is the last hour. We slowed it down and just got an hour of visual on this. So over the last hour, it's pretty much been in that same spot. But over the last 2 hours, it has moved enough to say it's going to keep doing that. Let's get an idea not only on that flood warning for Sonoma County, that stays in effect until 4 o'clock. That one most people already had an awareness of because it was issued yesterday. So what happens next? Let's put it into the future cast. And we already have a general idea of what's coming, but just to kind of watch the next few hours, even if you get out of that narrow cold front rain band of intensity in San Francisco, and you can kind of see how that's, by the time we get into the evening, there it is. It's kind of marched its way down over Santa Cruz. So between now and 8 o'clock, it's down here. It doesn't mean that you won't still see weaker ones regenerate behind it. And it certainly doesn't mean that you won't still have infill of showers. It's going to keep raining in San Francisco, even as that most intense rain band is now clearing the city in terms of the really heavy, flashy stuff. The rain's going to keep going, and you've already got the issue on the landscape from the rain of the last hour and a half there. So any rain you continue to put on it over the next 5 hours or 6 hours, even in the city, is a compounding issue. It won't allow the floodwaters to recede as quickly, and it might even help maintain them. So stay on top of this with us, and we'll keep you updated. Right now, the flood warning for San Francisco is set to expire in about an hour and 15 minutes from now. We'll let you know if that gets extended. And San Mateo County, you know, yours goes till 5, and now we'll watch for the rest of the peninsula and the East Bay Shore. But there's your break, Ann. That's 11 o'clock tonight. And so by the time, now that's just one window. We're going to get a break in the overnight hours. It'll be good. We have rain in the forecast on Saturday and Sunday. It's not going to be like this, but it'll be on again, off again showers. Maybe a few isolated thunderstorms can come through on Saturday and Sunday as we kind of get back towards the center of the system. We're going to stay busy into the weekend.
Yeah, well, I have concerns about the evening commute tonight, so hopefully all that traffic is sort of going to be staggered.
It's going to be messy.
Yeah,
the evening
if you're
commute.
watching us from home, stay there.
If you can start using this to make your plans now to avoid being one of those people who has to be on the road when we get to the commute. It's Friday. We're heading into next week what will be big travel, so hopefully this won't be as bad as that one, but people are trying to get ahead of the game on that. So if you're watching and you can adjust, this would be a very good idea.
Yeah.
Stay off the roads
No,
between
it's not the time.
now and like 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay. Very good. Of course, up north, they've been dealing with this for a couple of days now. And in Mendocino County, people are anxiously watching the rivers and creeks rise. In Ukiah, as the rain adds up, a lot of the focus right now is shifting to waterways that are starting to surge. And the ground that is becoming saturated, runoff moving really in every direction.
This is not normal. No, it's come up really, really quick. Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a couple days here.
Wow, that's higher than usual. We get a lot of rain, but this is kind of different because it's been really steady.
Yeah, I like to come out and check out the storm when it's storming.
This is a good one?
That's a pretty good storm, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. Caltrans is warning people to avoid driving if possible, as we have been talking about all afternoon. Crews are still working to clear the roads of debris. Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, we are continuing to track this atmospheric river, bringing heavy rain throughout the Bay Area. More live storm coverage coming up right after the break.
We're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
And we are live right now with a look at the Golden Gate Bridge, where rain has been coming down for the last several hours. This next round of rain from an atmospheric river is here. The storm hitting the entire Bay Area after battering the North Bay over the last couple of days. And here is a look at San Francisco, where the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning. I'm hearing a lot of reports from friends around the city that it has just been dumping in their neighborhood. So the city's been our focus, as well as parts of coastal San Mateo County. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Ann Makovic. We have meteorologist Darren Peck here with the very latest details, down to the minute. I mean, sometimes down to any specific neighborhood. We have a lot of information that you need to know if you are heading out, and we hope you're not, because it's not safe around a lot of the spots, including the highways.
It would look mild from the vantage point behind us where you're looking at the Richmond Bridge because the car's moving, doesn't appear to be a lot of traffic, there's a few drops of rain.
That's the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, by the way.
Yeah, behind us. What stands out is and we did this with the Bay Bridge earlier, where you can see these cars are hitting significant ponding of water on the roadway.
Yeah, hydroplaning.
Big splashes. We can no longer really even use our view out the window. That's our vantage point. That's our front row seat here on the virtual set. We're looking out across past like Treasure Island and the Bay Bridge, totally socked in gray here in the city. So all that would make sense in light of what we know. And then, of course, what we're representing on the virtual map, which is the last 3 hours of radar. And it's been a pretty good 3-hour time frame here for locations from the city south to finally get on the act. It was almost like right on the mark as we approached 1 o'clock. The cold front driving all of this made it down to the city, and that's what initiated the flood warning for the city. And now you can see we finally got widespread rain here for most of San Francisco and down the peninsula. I'm just going to remove the radar for 1 second, only because it'll probably help to gain our bearings on what we're looking at, and I'll bring it back on again now. You're looking at 3 hours of accumulating rainfall. In that time, in 3 hours' time, the city's gotten close to an inch at close to several reporting stations I was just looking at. And we kind of break those measurements of rainfall up into time frames. The hour time frame is the best one to go if you want to get a sense of how fast this is coming down in a short period of time, obviously. And we picked up about ½ an inch of rain in the most intense hour for the city. But it's rain, you've gotten about an inch now since this started in San Francisco in general over the course of about the last 3 hours. And there's more to go. There is notably more rain to go on this as it moves south. There's also an issue with the wind. So there is a wind advisory, let's not forget that. And when we visualize the winds today, there is a stark feature that shows up on the virtual set. You kind of see it out here. You've got this line of green, which is kind of like a diagonal line going right across the North Bay. This is the cold front, and this is back in time. I'm starting this just before about noon because it really gives us a good time frame to watch that cold front march its way across the bay. We're going to play this in 1 second. But first, just a little introduction to this. If you take a look at what the wind's doing on here, everything's coming this way. That means coming out of the south, and it's going up to meet that front. And then if you look behind the front, everything's going a different direction. Look at that. So classic. You've got your northwesterly winds behind the front. Where these two meet, that's where you've got a clash of air masses which have nowhere to go but up. And when they go up, now you've got your convection. That's how you build storm cells. Fast rising air is your best way to force the atmosphere to condense out its water vapor and then drop it right back down again as rain. This is why the cold front's been the feature that we've been tracking all morning. We've been watching it on radar, but there's another way to see it, and we're doing it here with winds. Watch what happens as we play the last 3 hours of it. No, not the radar. Let's take the wind and take it from where it is and play that from 11:45 until about 3 in the afternoon. Look at its progress. There's noon, 1 o'clock, right when it got to the city, and that's when we really started to see the rain with this. There is a wind concern with this, though. It's not just tracking that cold front for rain, which is the primary focus really of this afternoon and the flood warnings, but we're also looking at the wind advisory, and look, there's some good news on this. That map now has fewer areas on it that are included in the wind advisory. So the North Bay, you're done from the wind standpoint, because that cold front has now cleared you several hours ago. But from the city, peninsula, East Bay Shore, and this is the elevations, by the way. So what you're seeing on that map are primarily the hills, whether it's down the peninsula or the East Bay. That's where the 40-mile-an-hour gusts will be. So the much more important item is the flood warning, and that stays in effect until 5 o'clock, and the peninsula is included in it now, and we'll keep an eye on the progression of that heaviest band of rain being driven along by the cold front as it continues to work its way down the peninsula and now getting down towards the South Bay as well for the remainder of tonight. So much more on all that, and throughout the course of today, we'll be here tracking this as it moves across the bay, and we'll have the most important updates as they come up.
Definitely. And we're hoping that we don't see in the south what we've already seen in the north from this storm, and it looks like we won't. It's a little less intense, but we have been covering days of rain up north, and we're talking about homes flooded. We're going to take a look at that coming up next. And for some people, it's a case of deja vu. I'm going to show you more of the storm damage in the North Bay and how people are trying to take it all in stride. Welcome back to our live coverage here on CBS News Bay Area. We've been talking about flash flood warnings in San Francisco and along the San Mateo County coast, but we've been covering this atmospheric river hitting the North Bay for a couple of days now. That relentless rain up there has already flooded some homes in Santa Rosa. Some people we spoke with told us that this storm is one of the worst that they've seen. One man says his garage was flooded just a couple of years ago, and now it's happening once again.
It's absolutely amazing. It's flooding my house right now as we speak. This time it's really hit me hard.
Now, he's certainly taking it all in stride. He told us that he's been through some tough times, but hey, it keeps him busy and his wallet empty as he tries to fix all of that up. All right, let's get back over to Darren Peck, continuing to track the storm down to the minutes.
And the progression southeastward is where we're looking for those leading edge minutes, because we know the rain that came through San Francisco brought out a flood warning there, then got down to San Mateo County, brought out a flood warning there. There's a pattern. We've been watching it on the big picture here on the virtual set, but I think it would be a little more detailed right now in a situation like this to get as granular as we can with this, as much and as many specifics as we can. And I want to just pause the radar for the right now moment. In San Francisco, you are still very much in this. Even if it's not those bright beads of red where you had higher intensity rain initially through like early in the 1 o'clock hour and easily into the 2 o'clock hour, you're not looking at that now, but you still got moderate rain. And it's cumulative now. So I was talking a moment ago about how we've gotten about an inch of rain in San Francisco for some of the wetter locations over the course of the last 3 hours. Well, it's still coming down at a pretty good clip, which means any issues that we have encountered on roadways are not really getting much of a break. So they're either going to remain problematic where they are, certainly not really going to recede a whole lot just yet, until we get into an opening on here. And for right now, San Francisco, you're still in it. You see those red beads moving diagonally there? Watch that. That's how you can spot where the cold front is and the more intense rain. So when one of those goes through, you feel the intensity pick up in the rain. You also get some gusty winds with it. But from the flood standpoint, obviously, it's the rain that we care about most from that. And when you look at how that's progressing across the bay, it's moving quite slowly. Now, in the North Bay, you're out of the worst of this for now. You have gotten your most impressive and most impactful aspect of this storm. That was the previous 2 days. Not to say you're not still going to get rain, especially on Saturday. We're going to see some more isolated showers come back and maybe an occasional thunderstorm up here. But now this is a matter of working through the rain you've already gotten. It's been unprecedented up here in terms of setting records. And Santa Rosa has kind of been the example of this, with your rainiest 2 days on record. And those records go back about 120 years, or no, I should say about 100 years for Santa Rosa. For downtown, I believe that's the figure on that. Either way, it's a significant block of time for the weather center near downtown Santa Rosa. And to get 2 inches of rain there is something that had never been done. So this storm is notable on many fronts, and that flood warning through Sonoma County is a consequence of that. We're waiting for all of that water to run through the system. And right now, you're still going to be getting rain, even if it's not as consistent as it was. So we can't clear those waterways as fast as we otherwise will once the rain finally stops up there. So stay on top of your surroundings in Sonoma County as well. Those are the 2 trouble spots from the flooding standpoint right now. And San Francisco and San Mateo County have the headlines because they're in the here and now, and it came up fast.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, in light of the last 2 days being fairly quiet, were like, oh, all right. And now all of a sudden you've got a flood warning. So that's why we're doing this live.
Yeah.
And why we will continue to stay on to make sure people know that's coming up, because that's the kind of thing that will certainly catch a lot of people off guard.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we appreciate all of your detailed warnings and descriptions of what is to come. Going to make people feel a little bit better if they are home, hunkered down, because there's a lot of people that aren't right now. Yeah, we're going to show you how the storm is not stopping people from standing outside of a line at a store in the East Bay days before it even opens.
All right, we're back with our live coverage right now, giving you the overview on today's intense rain, which has finally gotten down to the Golden Gate and worked its way south. So the way we've been putting this is Friday, and we've been seeing this for the last several days, Friday is the day when the greatest population centers finally get into the act and start to experience this rain that we've been talking about with so much intensity for the North Bay for quite some time. So now we're finally seeing the rain get down here from the city and the peninsula and work its way down south towards the peninsula and the East Bay shore. So that's kind of your reference point on here for what the rain looks like on the big picture. We want to track this in detail, so in order to do that, let's come back over here and we're going to watch the last 3 hours of radar. And in watching this, we can just kind of get an update on where the most intense cells of rain are at this point. Kind of helps us with the forward progression on this. And when you come in for a close-up view here, and we're just going to stop it, that's the right now view. So let's get a close-up look at that if we can, because I'd like to start pulling out some more details on this one. You really want to see forward progression on this cold front, and that doesn't look like much organization to that, but that is the cold front that is spread out right across the peninsula and the city at this point, and we can come in for a closer view on that to kind of get a better handle. What you look for here are returns of heavier rain, like this one, moving down along the hills through San Mateo County, and you can see there's Half Moon Bay, and you're looking up over the mostly unpopulated stretch of beautiful preserved land up there through open space, and then you get back over towards the peninsula where there's heavier rain. But if we watch this line, the locations which are starting to see heavier amounts of rain now, let's come over here to the East Bay. We hadn't really focused on this yet because there was so much talk of the city and the intensity of the rain coming down there. But what I want to do, I'm going to switch this and I'm going to show you through this region on here where we've picked up at this point over the last 3 hours some pretty notable rain. So let's take a look at, let's say, in through Berkeley. And I'm going to switch our vantage point on that now just to kind of show you what that looks like from a numbers standpoint, because some of these numbers over here are already quite notable. So take a look at the one that we've got over towards Piedmont Avenue, where we've picked up just about an inch. This is 3 hours of time, and this is going through the East Bay. So Oakland Hills, Berkeley, in downtown, if you go down to not far off of University Avenue, we've picked up about 1.25 inches. The time frame on this is 3 hours. In other words, this is pretty much the same amount of rain that we've seen for San Francisco. And with as much focus as we've had on topographic low spots, I think we should take that into consideration over here as well, especially some of these locations back towards the hill where you might experience somewhat faster rises on some of the smaller streams and creeks back here, and low-lying intersections. 0.8 of an inch of rain through El Cerrito, 0.7 of an inch of rain up through the Berkeley Hills. And here's something that really lends perspective. I'm going to limit the amount of reporting stations for a minute, and I want you to see what rainfall has looked like now for the past 72 hours. And now you really see a very different kind of number with 13 inches, 8 inches up in the North Bay. And these locations, the majority of your rain over the last 3 days, that's all pretty much confined to like the last 3 hours. When I switch up the readings on that, it really says a lot about just how intense the rain coming down right now is. And that's why we're going to leave you with this final image, the flood warning, which includes San Francisco and San Mateo County, and stays in effect until we get to 5 o'clock this evening. That's our primary area of concern now. And of course, I mean, as Ann comes back over and joins me here on the virtual set, look at all the rain last 3 hours on here with consistency of the rain just kind of flowing from the southwest and overtaking much of, right now, San Francisco, East Bay Shore, down the peninsula, and so on from there.
Yeah, it has been pretty intense. So this next group of people, luckily they have tents, most of them, but in Pleasanton, we got a group out there braving the storm, and they're camping out trying to be the first in line for the grand opening of a brand new Costco store. Yeah, it's not even gonna open for another 5 days. So what is everybody after? Apparently there is a great deal on bourbon. Well, we talked to a guy named Sean. He's a first-timer. He's been in line for 2 days, and he told our Juliet Goodrich that he only leaves his spot for a quick nap in his SUV, which is parked in the parking lot. So what does his wife think of how he's spending his time?
Have you gone insane? Are you sure you want to do this? Shouldn't you be here with our family?
You're doing this for the family.
Yeah, so when I get home with these bottles of bourbon, we can all drink them together, and it'll be a family experience that we will never forget.
Or will you? Doors open at 8 a.m. the day before Thanksgiving. That's next Wednesday after a morning ribbon cutting. This is going to be the third Costco in the Tri-Valley. All right, we are going to continue to keep you posted live here on CBS News Bay Area with this current wave of rain, as well as some of the next rounds moving through tomorrow and into next week. You can always find the latest on our website, KPIX.com, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Again, thanks for streaming us. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with more live weather coverage coming up right after the break.
It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We have been continuing coverage on all platforms across CBS News Bay Area. We're checking in now with you live on KPIX as well. There's a flood warning that the National Weather Service has issued for a very localized area in the Bay. So you're looking at the last 3 hours of radar right now on our virtual set. I just want you to get your bearings. I'm standing in the location that has experienced over the last 3 hours some of the more notable rain. So watch that that playthrough again of live updating radar. We're going to put this in the Futurecast in a second, but here's the headline. Come over here. Within the last 5 minutes now, the National Weather Service has actually extended the regions of concern when it comes to flood and the flood warning. So it had been San Francisco and this section of San Mateo County San Mateo County got included about an hour ago, San Francisco about 2 hours ago. But just within the last few minutes now, National Weather Service has included the immediate East Bay shore there. So that includes a stretch of Contra Costa County, a stretch of Alameda County, basically from Oakland up through like Hercules. Takeaway on this is you want to stay off the roads. In the last visit when we were live on CBS News and we were streaming, I was pulling out rainfall totals from that location. And over the last 3 hours, some of those totals exceed the rain amounts that San Francisco has gotten. And we know they've got some confirmed reports already for localized flooding on roadways in the city. And the reason why they've extended this here now is likely for concern out of that as well. Take a look at the high-resolution radar depiction of where some of the heaviest rain is. That cold front, the bands that show up in here that are the brightest orange are now stretching right in across that region. If I can come in let's zoom in on that just a little bit. And now you see it right up there. Take a look at that stretch from Richmond down to Oakland. And you can follow kind of that deeper band of orange as it comes right down the peninsula. That's essentially outlining where the cold front is, and why that's important is because when you're on that line, the rainfall intensities will pick up. This is how we were able to get about a ½ inch of rain in an hour's time. But when you stretch that out over the 3 hours that it has taken this cold front to march its way across the bay, and what you're looking at here now is the last 3 hours, it becomes cumulative. And now you've got more water that you got to work through the landscape, whether it's coming out of these smaller streams and creeks in the hills, and that would be the bigger concern for that newly added area in Alameda County, would be downslope, and yes, and we do have that, by the way. I'm just communicating with my producer. We've got that flash flood warning for sections of Alameda and Contra Costa County. That is the one we just showed. And it's those downslope regions out of canyons. So think of local smaller streams and creeks will probably be problematic because the rainfall totals are a little bit bigger up in the East Bay Hills. And just as important, urban roadway flooding. That's what brought out the San Francisco flood warning initially, just as we were heading into the 1 o'clock hour. And that's going to be a factor for all of these locations. And even if you're not in that flood warning now that we just showed you, the progression of the line for this rain wants to move that all down to the southeast. Let's come back over to the virtual map in the last few seconds that I have with you. If you can see where the rain is on here now, I'm going to orient myself up here. Because even though the rain, the individual cells are coming in from the southwest and they're moving in like this, the general motion of this line is to take all of this and just kind of corral it and keep moving it down the bay, which means over the next hour, that line, which is now over the city, gets here. And just to show you where here is, I'll remove the radar. So now you're farther down the peninsula, you're more San Mateo, you're more Hayward, you're more Castro Valley. Not to say you're going to have the kind of rain and the intensity that brings out another flood warning, but you are going to experience the intensity of the rain pick up. And if you watch the progression of this, we've been watching this for 3 hours so far together live here as this is streamed on shore. It will continue that progression southward, eventually getting down into the Santa Clara Valley as we get into the early evening. So increased rainfall in the Santa Clara Valley, likely not the same intensity that San Francisco has seen. You're going to have a little bit more of a rain shadow effect there, but you will definitely have a rainy commute. And I'll just leave you with this notion. For so many of us, this has been a pretty quiet event. It's been a North Bay story, record-breaking rain through Sonoma County. But all along, as we've been forecasting, today was the day when the rain got down here. And it's going to stay like this pretty much for much of the rest of today until we get to about 9 o'clock tonight. So stay on top of this with us. The main point of concern will be any new flood issuances. So as soon as the National Weather Service issues another advisory, or even if they have to do another warning, we'll be on. And we'll let you know where those trouble spots are and where it would be best to stay off the roads. Right now, San Francisco, San Mateo County, East Bay Shore. And having said that, if you can avoid being on the road anywhere else south of there, if you don't absolutely have to, start making your plans to avoid this because it's likely going to be a very wet and messy commute. All right, we'll keep you updated. Stay here. We'll be streaming, by the way, if you want to continue to follow this with us. And we're pretty much taking this all the way through nonstop, so check in with us there as well. Okay, continuing on the stream, we've got the depiction on here now of a pretty good amount of rain that's moved across. And while I've got a moment with you, I know we've got some extra content that we're going to We're going to march onto the set here in a second, considering the big games coming up. But while we're waiting for that, and I'll wait till you guys let me know you're ready for that, we're going to lighten the mood a little bit. I just want to use what time I have to draw your attention back to what's probably going to be that most important information for now, which is the extension by the National Weather Service now of that flood warning. So a moment ago, when we were updating the details and we were talking about sections of Alameda and Contra Costa County having gotten included in the flood warning, those locations are now right under that band of heaviest rain that's moving over basically the shore, like the East Bay shore side of Alameda and Contra Costa County. And that line was, you know, like Hercules down to San Leandro. That whole stretch has gotten enough rain over the course of the last 3 hours that you've got to be very mindful if you've got to get on the road at all between now and then. There is also a wind aspect to this, and we've been watching that, and I can show you what that looks like on our virtual map as well. This goes back to right before the cold front came on shore. That was the cold front. You clearly see it in the wind streams, and then it marched its way southward from there. And as it did, the rain picked up on the leading edge. You could almost lay one on top of the other and watch how the cold front was the initiation, kind of like the initiating spark, because where those lines converge, the air's got nowhere to go but up. And when it goes up, that's the most productive way to force the atmosphere to condense out its water vapor and build rain clouds and then drop all that rain. And that's essentially what's been going on here today. All right, Ann, I see you in the wings there.
All right, yeah, because I have a special treat for everybody. You know, we've been going hard on storm coverage all day long, and we're going to continue to track this atmospheric river. But suddenly I go in the hallway and hear a familiar tune.
I know.
Because this is something that happens every year. We've got the Cal Band here. Come on in. I don't know if you can hear me anymore. Every year and join us in the newsroom is because it's the big game. This is the big game between Stanford and Cal, and it is tomorrow. So there's a chance, obviously, that it can be affected by some rain. So tell me, how do you feel about that? Are you guys ready for that?
I think we're ready for it. Yeah, it should
Okay.
be fun.
Does that affect your cheerleading at all?
We kind of just do it anyway because it's still a good time.
Okay, and how about you guys trying to keep these instruments dry? Okay, very good. A lot of enthusiasm for the big game, Stanford. And of course, we have OC over there, our Cal mascot. Thank you for joining us. Really, it's been intense around here covering this storm, so it's nice to have this moment of levity with the Cal Band, the Cal cheerleaders. We wish you all the best of luck tomorrow dealing with this game and whatever comes your way when it comes to the rain. Play us off, guys. All right, welcome back to our live coverage of the atmospheric river hitting all over the Bay Area. And it has really been pounding the North Bay for the past couple of days, now really starting to take a toll. Here's a look at a big mudslide in Healdsburg. This is near the end of Buena Vista Drive. We are told that it came from a property above that street on Madrone Avenue. You can see how they have tried to put down plastic to mitigate the debris flow. The crews are going to have to wait until the storm passes before they can try to shore up that hillside. Multiple creeks have overflowed in parts of Sonoma County, and the National Weather Service says that several roads are submerged as well. So a warning, don't try to drive through any sort of roadway that you can't tell how deep the water is. Here's a look at some of the rushing water today. We sent our Veronica Macias to Santa Rosa to check out the conditions there.
Homeowners who live along the Santa Rosa Creek are keeping a close eye on things. They say yesterday the water level was even worse than what we're seeing right now, where things are really starting to swell up. But yesterday evening, homeowners telling us the water was reaching the handrails. The fire department also keeping a close eye on things out here, because they know that when things get this bad at the creek, that's when they're going to have road closures, when that water spills into the streams, and they're making sure there's no backups on any of those streams and the storm drains. People tell us that they know that they've heard of several individuals who have been submerged, their cars in water, and despite some tragedies they've heard of, they say they're relieved to see this water in California.
I'm not too worried about it. It's more of a curiosity. We've had other rain like this and been okay. I think Santa Rosa is going to be okay, at least this part.
At the city's municipal yard, there continues to be a stream of people who go in for sandbags that are still being provided by the city. Some people there are telling us they're loading up their cars because water already is starting to creep in.
Well, first responders are on high alert again today, preparing to rescue people from potential floodwaters. Rising water stranding several people at a medical clinic yesterday in Santa Rosa when the parking lot suddenly flooded. Rescue crews had to evacuate patients and workers to safety, and we spoke with one woman who said her mother is in a wheelchair with a broken hip, and she was actually stuck inside.
And she came here for an appointment, and when her appointment was over, this was completely flooded. So she can't get out.
A lot of these streams and creeks just can't handle this volume of water in this short amount of time, but crews are continuing to do what they can to keep things moving.
Well, floodwaters never breached the building and were contained, luckily, to the parking lot, but it happens really quickly. In Grayton, rescue workers had to tow a car out of several feet of water yesterday. A driver apparently got trapped trying to make it through that flooded roadway. This is just west of Santa Rosa. And it's not only the roads. The relentless rain has flooded a vineyard in Sebastopol, one of several, and from high above here you can see the extent of the damage there. Some who live in the area are worried that this storm is only the beginning.
I guess the concern is really, starting this early, how long this goes on. If this goes on all winter long, we could have serious problems.
And we've been talking about this, Darren. This is not indicative of how the rest of the season is going to go rain-wise. But yeah, when you see this, winter coming in hot,
yeah,
it's concerning.
It's totally understandable to make that leap. If the storms are doing this already right out of the gate, what does it say about winter? Best bet we've got on our long-range forecasts are it's equal chances still going into the winter. There's no strong El Nino. There's no particular La Nina. None of that stuff we would use. So we really doesn't say much. You know what really plays into a factor on this particular storm is the fact that this fell on land that had not been oversaturated yet. So if a storm like
very good news.
Is very good
otherwise
news.
we'd see the trees tumble in and
Yes.
the hillsides going, which we've already seen a couple of those.
The amount of rain this storm has dropped, if it had come in January, this would be a very, very different story right now across much of the bay. Now, having said that, what this storm does do is it saturates the ground. So now when the next one does come in, should it come, it's not going to have to do as much work in terms of saturating the ground because this storm's going to leave things waterlogged for a little while. Let's talk about the moment at hand. The flood warning, which has been extended, and if you've been watching along on our coverage from this, and we started this just a little bit before 1 o'clock when San Francisco was the first one to go under flood warning status because of the amount of rain moving overhead. And that particular flood warning initially was set to expire at 3:45, but since then the flood warnings have expanded. So San Mateo County, or at least that western half of that kind of like northwestern corner of San Mateo County, you're in line with this until you get to 5 o'clock. And now the new one, which is the East Bay Shore from, say, San Leandro up to about Hercules, that's the most recently added section of this, and that stays in effect until 6 o'clock. But what we're likely going to see over the course of the next few hours, and I'll show you why I would say that when you look at radar, that heavier band of organized rain is continuing to work its way down to the southeast. And as it does so, I'll give you an idea on what rainfall totals look like as this thing moves over your part of the bay. We're going to look at the last 3 hours of rain on here. You can kind of see what the totals look like. Got yourself oriented. Here's Oakland. There's Alameda. Walnut Creek is way up on the top corner there. You see Berkeley over there. One of the reporting stations in Berkeley's picked up almost 1.5 inches in the last 3 hours. But when you look at the hills, I think those numbers become a little more important because now you've got close to 1 inch in places, but in general it's about 1/2 inch of rain. And that's all got to flow through the system. It's got to, those streams and creeks are going to be flowing downhill. So that's where this becomes a concern for rapidly rising streams and creeks. But it's also, I think, just as equally a concern from the urban flooding standpoint. So when we say urban flooding, primarily I'm talking about if you've got to be in a car on any of the roads, low-lying intersections, unforeseen gutters that are not working. They're still clogged. They haven't been cleared out yet this winter. Those can create unexpected and seemingly random localized floods through intersections, or maybe even worse, sometimes even getting into neighborhoods. So be aware of those kinds of things, especially in the city and the peninsula right now where the rain's been going for a little bit longer of a time. Latest look on this, that's a snapshot of where the rain is now. Keep in mind, those showers are all moving down to the southeast. So we'll say goodbye, but before we do that, let's get back over to the virtual set. And I'm just going to show you the general motion. I'm going to clear off the rain now as you can watch the last 3 hours. And remember the direction this is all going. Everything's getting pushed down this way. So over the next few hours, it's the peninsula, East Bay Shore, and then eventually it is a rainy commute in the Santa Clara Valley, although it will not be as intense as what we're seeing. The Santa Cruz Mountains will shield you largely this evening in the Santa Clara Valley when this rain gets your way. So another side to this storm, which is the snow, and the Sierra Avalanche Center has issued a backcountry, I'm assuming it's a backcountry avalanche advisory. And here's more on that story. Oh,
Well, it's been a busy week for ski resorts all around Lake Tahoe area. This morning, we're celebrating the opening day here at Boreal Mountain Resort in Soda Springs. Now, again, it's been a busy week. We had Heavenly opening on Wednesday, North Star yesterday, and today 3 more ski resorts are following suit, including Boreal, Palisades Tahoe, and Sugar Bowl. Now, today here at Boreal Mountain, lift tickets are $25, with 5 of those dollars going to local charities. As far as parking goes, parking is free and you don't even have to reserve a spot today. So in terms of how late you can get out here, lifts have been going since 9 a.m. and the last one's taken off at 8 p.m. So if you have no plans after work, you can get on out here, and they'll be open through the weekend as well. So happy opening day, everybody. All right, looks like I'm gonna grab my board and head on out there myself.
All right, so Sakura's having a great time up there, but not advisable to try to go to the Tahoe area over the next at least 24 hours because the rain here, snow up there. Still ahead, we are going to go to far north Mendocino County, where people are keeping a close eye on the rising waters for obvious reasons. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. We are continuing our live storm coverage here on CBS News Bay Area, but we do have some breaking news right now from the 49ers. Apparently, Brock Purdy is out for Sunday's game against the Packers. He's still nursing that shoulder injury, and head coach Kyle Shanahan says that Brandon Allen is going to start in place of Purdy. Nick Bosa is also out this Sunday. So that's your little breaking sports update. In the meantime, we are continuing to track that atmospheric river hitting the Bay Area right now. The rain starting to flood some freeways. Here is a look at northbound 280. This was in Daly City this afternoon, just north of Washington Street. A lot of water there. The CHP has blocked a few lanes of traffic right now on 280 because of at least a foot of flooding there. And take a look at this new video. This is from Pacifica. Despite the storm, saw some surfers out there hitting the water, trying to take advantage of those waves. Meteorologist Darren Peck continues to track this storm. We've seen the flash flood warnings in San Francisco, then moving down the San Mateo coast, and we've just been watching it as this storm slowly moves to the south and east. Where are we right now?
Well, we're looking at an extension of the flood warning, as we've stated already, through that immediate shore side of Alameda and Contra Costa County. So from San Leandro up to Hercules, that whole stretch. So think of all the communities in there. Berkeley, Berkeley Hills, more so in the hills. I'll show this on the map in a second, but that's what's the latest primary concern. But
well, and that encompasses all the way, by the way, several freeways. We got 880, 580. So that's an issue when it comes to driving, especially as we approach the potential evening commute hours.
And this does apply in that way. So we talk about urban flooding concerns. That means, simplified, if you're in a car. Now, usually you would think you'd be okay on the major interstates, but as we've seen, low-lying spots.
Happens quickly.
Yeah. Bigger challenges will be intersections and gutters that weren't cleared. And those are probably the bigger trouble spots.
Yeah, because this is our first big storm of the season. So, yeah, those trouble spots you don't know are troublesome until they become it.
And let's get back over to the flood warning. I'll show you what we're talking about. Rather than, we'll outline what the most likely suspects are in terms of where you'd run into trouble if you're included in this flood warning. But really, rather than trying to go through all of what the hypotheticals are, it's really much better just to say, as long as we're in this situation, if I don't absolutely have to be on the road, I'm going to stay off it. That is the advice in a situation like this. And while it certainly applies to any place that's got a flood warning, and you can see all the places that do, there's that new addition on there for much of the East Bay Shore. That goes till 6. San Francisco, you might see yours expire a little bit earlier than that, but I don't see that anytime soon because it's still raining there. In fact, I'll show you what the radar looks like, and you kind of see why that is. So it has been fairly steady. On the one hand, when you look at 3 hours of radar like that, you'd go, oh, that looks like it's kind of stationary now over the city in the East Bay, kind of like it was for 2 days over Sonoma County. But it is very much not that kind of situation today. There is forward progression on moving that line through. Now, if you look at the rainfall totals in the East Bay, we are looking at these are 3-hour totals, by the way. And just to get oriented, right, here's Alameda, there's Oakland. See the Bay Bridge over there just says 80 with a line, and there's Berkeley. It's gotten about 1.5 inches. That's why that location was included in the flood advisory. And you can see where that location is on radar. Let's come in for a closer look. It's pretty much right in that direct line of sight now as the rain comes in over Half Moon Bay, goes over San Mateo, and then works its way up right through San Leandro, which is actually a little bit further south, a little bit more advanced on the progress of moving this line through the bay. So this is an improvement, because if you look at San Francisco on there, you can almost kind of make out that San Francisco is now on a little bit of a back edge. Not to say that the rain's going to turn off there, as much as we'd like that to happen for San Francisco now, considering the amount of rain that you've gotten. You're looking at about 1 inch in general over the last 3 hours in places too. That's why you've got the flood warning there. And we started this whole coverage focused on that. But as we knew would happen, the widespread bands of rain are now progressing across the rest of the bay. So we got to make sure all of these other communities are aware that you're going to feel the intensity pick up, and this line of rain now has a proven track record of delivering enough rain in short enough periods of time that flooding becomes a very real concern, and already witnessed in parts of San Francisco in terms of low-lying intersections and things like that. So if that's where the radar stands at this point, We can look at this in terms of what happens next on the Futurecast, and I think one good way to do that would probably be see if we can get there in this cycle, if I can advance ahead and get to a Futurecast depiction on this. There's our flood warning. There's the North Bay, by the way, Sonoma County, you're still in this tonight, and that we've covered extensively over the last 24 hours because yours has been in place for quite some time. Here's the Futurecast. So what happens next? Stays like this for many of the next few hours, but there is an advancement. In other words, here we are at 8 o'clock, and you can see where that steadiest rain is now over Santa Clara Valley. That's when San Jose starts to notice some of it. You're going to get rain in San Jose long before 8 o'clock, by the way. But you'll be under kind of some of the best lines of organized rain as we go into the early evening. You'll be rain shadowed by the Santa Cruz Mountains. Your totals won't be as big. And then we get into a little bit of a break. Now that's tonight as we approach midnight. But Saturday has a very different kind of character to it. You're going to see isolated showers come in, hit or miss showers, maybe a few follow-up lines of rain that come through. We've just gone through Saturday afternoon, and now we're getting into Saturday evening when it clears. But even then, we're not done, because there will be more on-again, off-again showers that will come in for part of Sunday. That's Sunday dark and early, and now you've got another line which looks like a fairly well-organized front that comes in for part of the day on Sunday. So, and all of those, particularly the Saturday and Sunday rain, it's not like today where it's widespread steady for hours, but on the flip side, it can come through with a little more intensity to it. So you can get shorter bursts as we go into Saturday and Sunday, on again, off again. But you're also going to see blue sky on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
You're going to see plenty of breaks of blue sky, and then the next little cell is going to come in, and you'll get a brief little downpour.
So it's going to be hard to make plans.
Yeah,
Just
for the
bring the
weekend.
raincoat and the
Yeah.
galoshes. Do we have galoshes?
Some of us do, with Midwest roots, I'm sure. I don't know.
Meantime, in Mendocino County, they have been pounded for a couple of days now, and they've been anxiously watching the rivers and the creeks rise. In Ukiah, as the rain adds up, a lot of the focus is shifting to waterways that are starting to surge right now, and the ground that is becoming saturated, runoff moving in every direction.
This is not normal. No, it's come up really, really quick. Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a couple days here.
Wow, that's higher than usual. We get a lot of rain, but this is kind of different because it's been really steady.
Yeah, I like to come out and check out the storm when it's storming.
This is a good one?
That's a pretty good storm, yeah.
Caltrans is warning people to avoid driving if possible as crews work to clear the roads of debris. Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, we are going to continue to track this atmospheric river bringing heavy rain throughout the Bay Area. More live storm coverage coming up right after the break.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
And welcome back to our live streaming coverage of this atmospheric river throughout the Bay Area. This is a live look right now at the Golden Gate Bridge, where rain continues to fall, and this next round of rain is coming in hot. That storm hitting the entire Bay Area after battering the North Bay over the last couple of days. And we just got this new video into our newsroom. This is in Rohnert Park. You can see streets there completely submerged, several cars stuck in the water. Also got some new video in from San Francisco. Actually, we do not have that video in, but there are several spots around the city that have flooded, and we got a heads up from about that from the National Weather Service. Everybody got a big siren on your phone, not only in the city, but along with parts of San Mateo County in the East Bay, with this flash flood warning. And when we've been seeing the results of that flash flooding on the roadways, I'm Ann Makovic, by the way. Meteorologist Darren Peck has been taking us through all of this.
Watching it at our feet right now, too. If we can get a wide view on the virtual set. What we've got now, and this is the last 3 hours. So it's been pretty consistent like this, and you and I are both standing pretty much right on San Francisco. Let me just clear out the rain for a second so we can see where we are. I'm in San Francisco. You're about 5 miles out in the Pacific.
Yeah, it looks so much calmer without your bright colors.
I know, but so here's your perspective now, and the rain's been fairly consistent in terms of its ability to keep bringing more totals to much of the bay, and what we care about is where it's going next. Down here. This line, which is it seems fairly stationary, but we've been able to watch the most important feature within this, the narrow cold front, which is delivering some of the heaviest rain. That has had forward progression on it, and it's moving this way. And when I say this way, let me get rid of the rain again, and you kind of see where we are on here. It's working its way down the bay. So everybody will get their chance on this over the next several hours. And it'll take several hours for this to clear. That's why today is probably the day when the overwhelming majority of us finally start to get into the rain. It's not just Sonoma County anymore, like what we were showing you for Rohnert Park. Makes total sense for Rohnert Park to be seeing that kind of water on roadways right now, even if Rohnert Park is getting a little bit of a break in terms of the heaviest rainfall. So let's switch from looking at the virtual map now. We've got our live picture up here now, which shows us what things look like in terms of what's been going on at the Richmond Bridge. And if you guys have the ability to change the source on this for me, so this would require a director's help, can we put Max 1, the weather computer, back in this monitor, and then we'll be able to see what we're looking at. Very cool. Thank you for doing that. So those are the rainfall totals, but I want to get a little more detailed in terms of the widespread nature of what the rain looks like. At this point, we saw this on the virtual map, but let's get a little more detail oriented in terms of specific up-to-the-minute lines of rain. We can pause it on here. Look at the timestamp up there. That's right now. And it is still pretty consistently coming in across from Half Moon Bay, over the peninsula, and right up into the East Bay Shore. Your takeaway from this is, over the course of the next hour or so, this is going to crest the East Bay Hills in a little more widespread way. You know, Caldecott Tunnel's already getting plenty of rain, 24, but Walnut Creek and down into the Diablo Valley, this rain starts to work its way over, and you'll be experiencing this as well within the next hour or two.
All right, coming up next, I think we're going to take a quick break. Shall we?
We might as well.
Okay, yeah, I know you've been very busy tracking this, and we appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break and be back with our live storm coverage here on CBS News Bay Area coming up after the break. All right, continuing our first alert weather coverage now. This is some new video of some flooding on 580 in Oakland. This was shot by our very own Da Lin, and you can see there's a lot of water there on the freeway. I'm surprised they're not actually thinking about closing some of those lanes. It's just coming down very quickly, and it's just not able to hit the drains as well quickly as it should. So there's some very dangerous driving conditions. Check that out. I mean, that's virtually hydroplaning there. So again, this is 580 in Oakland, just one of several freeways that are in this hotspot right now, this flash flood warning and watch hotspot. So we're going to see more of that coming in. Here is another new clip that we just got. This is in San Francisco. Look at how deep that is. This is at 23rd and Dolores. Again, as we've been telling you, the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning for the city. That came down before 1 p.m. It remains in effect along with parts of San Mateo County and the East Bay. In the meantime, in the North Bay, they've been dealing with this for days already. The relentless rain has already flooded some homes in Santa Rosa. Some people that we spoke with there say that this storm is one of the worst they've ever seen. One man saying his garage was flooded just a couple of years ago, and now it's happening all over again.
It's absolutely amazing. It's flooding my house right now as we speak. This time it's really hit me hard.
Yeah, he is taking it all in stride. He told us that he's been through some tough times, but, on the positive side, it keeps him busy. So that is something that homeowners all around the Bay Area are dealing with or are nervous about right now because of these warnings that are still in effect. And Darren Peck has been tracking all of this for us. And did you see that video at 580? The lanes were totally submerged in water. And this is what we've been talking about. The concern as we get closer to the evening commute hours. And that's just one of the freeways there. You got 880, you got 80. There's probably a lot of spots out there that we don't even know about yet that are flooded. And that was your exact point. The last time we were here together was the concern for anybody who's got to be on the freeway and traveling that way.
Point well taken on that in terms of awareness levels. And that video probably really drives that point home.
Yeah, it's scary.
If you take a look at what's going on now at our feet, you can see widespread rain still, which is parked over kind of like the main population centers. You can see it moving in across the city, East Bay. Fairly stationary in terms of this widespread swath. And just to give you the view on what this looks like right now, you kind of see where we are. It'd be nice to get a little more forward progression on this and move this out of here a little bit faster. But in light of the fact that this is still very much a feature that is in place for much of the Bay, let's kind of get an update on the latest, most important detail in terms of this. The National Weather Service does not issue flood warnings lightly, but they've got one that has been issued for San Francisco, San Mateo County, Alameda County. So let's take a look at that in the monitor up here over my shoulder. The timestamp on this is it goes until 6 o'clock, and that 6 o'clock was the time that was put on this when the most recent addition to this was made, and that was the Alameda and Contra Costa County stretch of that. So take a look at from San Leandro going up north through Hercules. We're looking at rainfall totals there a moment ago, and you've gotten within a 3-hour period a little over an inch in some of the low spots like the flats. There was one reporting station in Berkeley, not far off University Ave, that had picked up about 1.25 inches in 3 hours. So you've seen your fair share there, and it makes perfect sense that you're included in this now. But if we take a look back at that 3-hour loop, it has moved down to the southeast, and it will pick up momentum and continue moving down to the southeast, and it's going to improve this situation for at least the city. But that means as it moves south, the rainfall rates are going to go up down the peninsula and along the East Bay shore. And you look for the color codings on an image like this, you get into those deeper shades of reds and oranges, and that's where you're seeing the rain come down at a more notable clip, and there's one right there. And it does kind of fall within the lane, that lane we've been watching as the rain keeps getting pulled in off the coast. Right now it's coming in over Half Moon Bay, and then it extends across the peninsula. You can see where San Leandro is. You're looking at the open water of the bay right here. Here's Burlingame, San Mateo, there's Hayward. So a lot of this right now. And San Mateo Bridge has some good rain coming down on it. But you see what's happening for San Francisco? Shades of green like that like slice of green is fairly light rain in comparison. That's good. And look at the back edge. There's also now some light at the end of the tunnel for this heaviest episode of rain for San Francisco. because there is a back edge to that where the intensity of the rain is going to slacken off a bit. You've already kind of gotten into it there for the west side of the city. Still raining there. But it's not raining to the degree that it has been for much of the afternoon. And you can see again that kind of, we'll pull out wide for the view on that there. So there's your flood warning. Keep that in mind. This is primary concern. There is a wind aspect to this. So for that, we're going to go back to the virtual map. And we're going to take a look at what the wind streams have to show us on here, because they've had a really interesting pattern. Since we've started using the virtual set and visualizing the weather this way, we really haven't had a beautifully well put together cold front like this sweep across the bay, and today we had one. So now you can really see what that does. First of all, you got your strong winds out here in the shades of red, and those are working their way right back here. These are strong southerly winds racing back to meet up with the cold front. And come in for a closer look and you can see what's happening behind the cold front. Those winds are going in a totally different direction. So the winds are converging where they meet on that line, and that's where the action is. That's why we were able to track these downpours throughout the day, because that's where you get your strong uplift and you get your rain. So we've got our vantage point. Let's swing that arm back around, because what we're going to do is take this cold front and animate it. And what you're going to see on here now is from 11:45, and we're going to let it play to pretty much right about now, actually. And watch where that cold front goes. You see it moving? Moves down to the city and then kind of washes out a little bit. Not to say that the influence of this is going to go away in terms of that intense rain band, but in light of that, as that cold front kind of washes out a little bit, we may see a little less of that really well-defined string of beads we were looking at earlier. The string of beads I'm referring to is the heaviest rain along the cold front that hit the city about 2.5 hours ago, and that's what really brought out the flood warning. And that's why the city and the East Bay Shore are included in that. And by the way, Sonoma County, your flood warning stays in effect as well till 4 o'clock. And Ann was showing you video of cars on roadways in Rohnert Park from today. So there's still a lot of rain to get through in the North Bay, even if things have quieted down now a bit in terms of that most widespread steady rain up there. Now on the futurecast depiction, watch the showers continue and the rain continues. And by the time we've gotten to about 8 o'clock, there is a little bit more of a focus on the Santa Clara Valley. Not that it won't start raining before that, but at least in terms of where the most notable rain is as we get into the evening, it's centered down in the Santa Clara Valley, and then it'll clear for a brief time. And that break is short-lived. So that gets us to tonight at 11:15. We will get a much-needed break in the rain in the overnight hours, but we know from looking at the futurecast as much as we have together today, Saturday afternoon, more showers come in, isolated on again, hit and miss showers. And then Sunday, more on again, off again, hit and miss showers will come in. So the whole weekend's got a chance to rain, but you're going to see more blue sky on both of those days than you've seen.
And the good news is windows to take the dog out to go to the bathroom. I'm
Right.
always looking for that in the city, because that is an issue. I mean, all day, it's just been pounding all
It
day.
has, yeah.
So, okay, I know you're going to keep us updated on those opportunities we might have over
Yes.
the next couple of days. Also coming up, we're going to show you how the storm is not stopping some people from standing in line outside a store in the East Bay days before it even opens. Yeah, one of these lines. We'll be right back. We are continuing to get new video into our newsroom this afternoon of flooding around the entire Bay Area. And this is just in from the 280 overpass in San Francisco. Look at that, several inches of water that these cars are going through. It's really getting to a dangerous level. Luckily, they're moving slowly. This video just in from our own Devin Feely. He's on his way to work and he sent this in. I think you have a really good reason for potentially being late today, Devin Feely. But yeah, it's just been like that throughout the Bay Area. East Bay, they're seeing some flooding on 580, 880, and 80. And it's just one of those things that suddenly you come up on one of these patches that it is already flooded out. And you don't know how deep it is in some circumstances. And that is very dangerous. Again, I got to point out, it's really great that they're moving slowly, because once you're moving quickly and you hit one of those spots, we all know you end up hydroplaning. We actually saw several cars in that scenario coming up against the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza in Oakland. So we have been watching all of this. Darren, it's been a busy afternoon for you with all of these flash flood warnings.
Yeah, it has. And, you know, the flash flood warnings are important, obviously. The wording on that really has to be stressed for a reason. When the National Weather Service says warning, that means we are telling you that we've got documented existence of this happening. So a warning means that you've got to hear that and take some kind of action. In this case, the action is stay off the road. That's really it. And be very aware of your surroundings. There's a flood advisory, and that flood advisory has been in place for much of the peninsula, much of the East Bay Shore, and that's the National Weather Service's way of saying, we know that the forecast shows the potential that we could get enough rain over the next day and a half where flooding could become an issue. So the two differences there, we've been focusing and drilling down on the flood warning because it's the most important messaging to get across right now. But if you're anywhere on the peninsula, East Bay Shore, you've got a flood advisory, and that's going to stay in effect going ahead really for the remainder of tonight as well. So everybody's got to at least have some situational awareness about this. You look at the forecast in two different ways here. The virtual set gives us the ability, it's constantly updating. What you're seeing here is the last 3 hours of rain up till this moment. And there is a pattern if you watch it this way. And it's, for the most part, this is good news. Again, watch what happens back here. It's very subtle. It's not going as fast as we'd like, but it is pretty much doing exactly what we would expect timing-wise. It's moving. See? We're back to the beginning. And as it moves, look at the opening back there. So great news for Sonoma County. You're about to get a much-needed window. It's not going to turn off. You still have more rain coming over the next 2 days. But where you get that back edge through Sonoma County, that's your window opening up. That line is working towards San Francisco. You're going to get a little bit of a break. We were looking at that in the last visit. Let's do that again over here and get a little more detail in terms of rainfall forward motion. You're looking at the last 3 hours there, and when we stop it here on just the last hour and take a look at that, there's that back edge getting a little bit closer to San Francisco to give you an opening. And we know once we get towards the later hours of tonight, we will get an open window. It's going to be a break in the overnight hours before more isolated showers come back next week. And that's where things stand on this for now. We'll be right back after this. Nope. Ann, over to you. So
yeah, I do want to, this is just kind of a funny aspect of the rain coverage, because there's some people who are camping out in it and they think it's worthwhile, and it's in front of a Costco store that's not even open. This is in Pleasanton. They are waiting for the grand opening that is going to apparently happen in 5 days, and they've been camping out for a couple of days. Now they're dealing with this storm. So what is motivating these people? Well, apparently there's a great deal on bourbon. We met up with Sean. He's a first-timer. He's been in line for 2 days, and he told our Juliet Goodrich that he only leaves his spot for a quick nap in his SUV parked in the parking lot. So the obvious question, what does his wife think of how he's spending his time?
Have you gone insane? Are you sure you want to do this? Shouldn't you be here with our family?
You're doing this for the family.
Yeah, so when I get home with these bottles of bourbon, we can all drink them together, and it'll be a family experience that we will never forget.
So doors open at 8 a.m. the day before Thanksgiving after a morning ribbon cutting. It's going to be the third Costco in the Tri-Valley. All right, stay up to date with this current wave of rain as well as the next rounds moving through tomorrow and into next week. You can always find the latest on our website, kpix.com, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with more weather coverage after the break.